We've been high school and travel ball coaches forever,
Right.
and when we do our fall ball stuff specifically, there's so much misinformation, and there's, for lack of a better way, of cluelessness from parents and players and not knowing what to do and expect. And
Right.
so that's kind of why we started doing the podcast, as something fun to kind of inform people.
Right.
But in the fall ball is just kind of, it's icing on the cake with that.
No, I get you guys. There's a lot to it. I think the big thing you have is how can you inform people to make the best educated decision? I mean, I had told you it doesn't really affect us NIL, except I just literally read a story today about like the transfer portal, which we can talk about too, and then NIL and going from Division I to Division III. So I mean.
I was reading a
all
real
crazy.
interesting one with the NIL now. Your Division I players are opting not to go into the pros and staying longer at
They're making more money.
because they're making more money
Right.
in the D1s.
Exactly.
And so the minor leagues are suffering right now with
Right.
talents.
Exactly.
There's no talent there.
No.
You know?
No. And I mean, that's where the minor leagues, they got to figure out something.
They do, because a lot of those teams are going to dry up.
And then there's so many of them.
Oh, my goodness.
Baseball. So, I mean, who was the guy that just, though, went out to New England? Just got hired as a recruiting guy out there, New England baseball. I don't know who. I think he came from the Chicago area. I was just reading about it. A glance of it. So just somebody who transported, I think, from Chicago area out to New England for baseball. I'm sure they're out there in baseball land. There's a lot of leagues out there too, out east. So yeah.
So real quick, obviously we looked up your bio and kind of what your background is, but
Yeah.
just give us a little bit kind of your journey on how you got to Lawrence Tech and how you got into this. And
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, it's a journey, right? I mean, I'll go back to my days of just living right down the street here at Northville High School. So I grew up in Northville and had, I guess, the pleasure of having some really awesome coaches. So like that jump starts me to the coaching thing. But kind of go back, played lots of sports in high school and then had the privilege of going over to Adrian College and ended up being a Bulldog and was a 3-sport athlete in college. And I always joke around and say, basically I was, an athlete and then a student a little bit. I studied what I could and had somewhat of a social life, I guess, in Adrian College, but not, right? But I love sports. I mean, that was my thing. Growing up, I was always involved in sports. And then when I graduated, I actually taught at Northville High School for a few years, yeah. Was at the elementary schools and the high school and physical education teacher and coached.
Growing up when you were
Growing up a long time ago.
when you were watching sports, what were you watching and who were you watching it with?
Oh my gosh. First of all, I mean, if my brother would actually listen to this, I would try to beat my oldest brother at everything. And then the day that I beat him in basketball, he stopped playing me. So that was awesome. He's 4 years older. So yeah, and a little taller too. So, but I would watch Pat Summitt. Like that basketball was actually my sport more than softball, which is so funny now. I loved basketball. I loved watching every aspect of basketball. And softball really wasn't a thing. Growing up, you just kind of watch it, see it here and there, and then you saw the Olympics, come about a little bit. And I think when you see how the Olympics was on and off, but like that definitely, when we won in 96 and 2000, I actually tried out for the Olympics one year. Made the first cut and then I was done.
That's cool.
Yeah, but that was kind of a cool thing because obviously, that's the highest end of softball for us. So at the time. And so for me, I loved my coaches. They were so hard on me, but they made me who I was. And the weird part is in high school is where I ended up being a softball person. I actually was a soccer and basketball all my life and did softball on the side. And then in high school, I had gotten injured in soccer and I was like, oh, I'm going to try softball my junior year. So then I switched to softball. And I think if that wouldn't have happened, I obviously wouldn't be probably a softball coach now. But I ended up going playing, basketball and softball and golf in college. So it was like one of those things, like I never imagined being a softball person, until high school. So I kind of jumped around there. But I think thinking of my coaches, I don't know if you know Ed Critch from Norfolk High School, just phenomenal basketball coach. And then Stan Smolik was a great high school soccer coach that, they just taught me so much. I think that's the part about sports that you love so much is, they were hard on me. I still remember Ed Critch taking me back and being like, Baird, you got to understand, like, you're on a varsity team, and I was on varsity as a sophomore, and like he's like, you got to figure it out. You got to step it up. And I was, silly old teenager that didn't know much, and okay, coach, yeah. So, but like his drive for me back then is what has driven me as a coach. So,
Stuck with you.
Oh gosh, yeah. He's definitely one of the biggest coaches influence in my life. So, yeah. And then, let's go back. So we go Adrian College, and then from Adrian College, like I said, went to Northville, and then got the itch I wanted to do college, right? Like I had done some basketball camps at U of M, and just kind of been around it, and I'm like, gosh, I really like this. And I loved my experience at Adrian, so I'm like, I'm going to try the college route. So weird enough, I actually I interviewed at Adrian and at Albion the same year. And everybody was like, oh, she's going to go back to her alma mater. And I didn't. I went to Albion because I wanted to be something different. Like, I didn't want to, oh, hey, Karen from Adrian. Like, I wanted to.
Make your own path.
You got it. Exactly. Make my own path and stuff. So
Your own legacy, your own.
You got it. In coaching, not like the player from, such and such. So I went there and for 5 years, and then actually got the job then at Eastern Michigan at Albion. I was actually the softball coach, the intramural director, and the golf coach. So wore a couple of hats there, but had...
Well, you got 3 times the pay, right?
3 times less to pay. Yeah. Nothing against you, Albion. I love you. But, it just... but it was awesome. Like, the players that were there, my golf team, they were crazy. They were probably, like, the craziest team out of all my teams. And they play the guitar, in the vans and stuff like that. And then we went, for softball-wise, we beat, like, the number 1 team when we were Albion. We beat the number 1 team, which was Alma at the time, and they were always up there. And still remember the game where our catcher made her crowd the plate a little bit, bases loaded, and that tied the game, and the next kid got the game-winning hit. I was like, yes, there we go. Now I know a little something about softball. And then went on from there, went to Eastern, and had a phenomenal experience. What I think was the hardest part for me was transition from Division III to Division I. I thought I had to be a really hard coach at Eastern, and there's some things that I probably could have been a little nicer about,
So you're trying to basically be somebody that you weren't at that.
Yeah. I was really hardcore.
Self-aware
and
self-aware now.
Well, self-aware now, I'd say. not at the time. I would say I literally was with some of those players a couple months ago, and they're like, Coach, you did this. And I'm like, I know. I made you run so much. So, yeah. But we joke about it. It's nice to hang out with them and hear the stories and how they rip on you, and you're like, yes, I know. So, and then from Eastern, I actually took a couple years off because I had been let go as a coach, and I didn't know if I wanted to stay in coaching. And then got back into coaching at Oakland as an assistant, and knew I wanted to be a head coach again. I loved being an assistant, but I knew I wasn't assistant material. So I wanted to be in charge, like I wanted like to understand, like, okay, hey, we got this, and kind of have that. I mean, Connie gave me a lot of leeway. Like, she let me do a lot of things, Connie Miner, but I knew, like, all right, I want my program. And funny enough, when I was on recruiting for Oakland, I kept seeing these LTU shirts. I'm like, Lawrence Tech doesn't have a program, And so I just kind of watched it. And then about, I think, 2000, so the coach was there for a year. And then she moved on to another program. And I was like, I want to be there. And I knew I wanted to be back at the small school. That was my big thing. Like, I realized I'm in Division I twice, and which is a great experience. Everybody needs to enjoy like a Division I experience. But I'm a small school person. Always have been, like that mindset. And so, yeah, I went back to Lawrence Tech. So that's the whole circle right there.
So it sounds a lot like with our, with our players that we work with, we try to find the best fit for them.
Oh, for sure.
And
Yes.
like basically you're
Recruiting. It's recruiting in a way, right?
Well,
yeah.
you find
Yes.
That's fit for you.
correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, yeah, back here, I've been here. Gosh, we always joke around. I'm like, is it 6? Is it 7? Is it 8? I think it's 7 years I've been here. And like I said, the previous coach started this program. So I came in the perfect year, 1 year after. I didn't have to do all the little other things. Came in, when I came in, we were all pretty much freshmen, sophomores in the program. And so for me, I'm like, all right, I just got to keep recruiting and keep that going. And but the cool part, too, is the first, I think, year 3, we ended up being ranked like 25th. I mean, this program's not that old, and so to already have been ranked, it was phenomenal. So, she brought some great players in. We had some from California, from Michigan, Canada, all over. And we still have that. We can go over that in a minute. And the ladies that you get there are so driven. Like, they're smarter than me. I mean, I always say, like, you guys are so much smarter than me. I'm your coach. I organize you and just try to teach you a little bit about sports. And but they're just phenomenal ladies that just want so much. And we have doctors, we have lawyers, people who've gone into biomedical engineering, civil engineering, electrical engineering, all the engineerings. We have nurses and people from business, mechanical engineering, I already said, I know. Trying to think what the other majors. Oh, graphic design, too. So, yeah.
I looked at your roster earlier today. I saw a lot of architects.
Yeah, we have oh, my gosh. This is the most architectural people we've had on the team. So, and that's the hardest major there. Like, that major, I'm surprised that they can play softball and do architecture, to be honest with you.
Takes up a lot of time.
Oh.
So how do you? So when we've talked with some on the baseball side, some of the coaches that we've talked to, if you have a specific major, they're like, hey, you can't play baseball here. It just won't work in our program and our fit.
Right.
So how do you work around all those different types of degrees and those majors, and how do you make that all work with the player schedules?
And that is an awesome question. And that is why I love being at the small school, because you're going to miss practice. So everybody can play. It doesn't matter what major you are. Nurses, by the time they're seniors, they might not even be able to play their senior year very much because they have all the clinicals. Architecture, same thing. Like, there's so much to it. But when you're at a small school, go for it. Like, you're here for an education. That is the main reason you're here, and we're going to support you in every way, shape, form we can do that. So come on over to Lawrence Tech. I mean, honestly. We have people, like, our schedules, Lawrence Tech this year, this is the first time they've done it, but they've, like, made it from 7 to 9:30. You can, like, that's not a time that you will practice. Or, I'm sorry, have classes. That's when you can practice. It still didn't work because, I mean, there's classes start right at 9:30, and, you want to lift, and then you're like, okay, by the time we lift, then you do this. So, but for our players, we have a little bit different because we don't have a lot of stuff on campus either. So travel-wise, like, they have to travel. So we are being mindful of, like, okay, how do we make sure that they're successful on the field? Well, they're going to be able to come to practice. So I have sometimes nursing not showing up. Sometimes, the architects, the graphic design, they actually do a lot online. So, but it's amazing how you just, okay, who can't make practice at this time, and you're like, okay, this is what time we're going to do it, and majority and can come, great. So it's tough.
Do you face any specific challenges recruiting for a technical school?
No, I mean, what is cool is the school kind of recruits itself, to be honest with you. I mean, we have a player from Hawaii, and actually we've kept the train going. We have now another player coming in next year and another player after that from Hawaii. So so a lot of it is they, hey, I want to go to a school that has this and this. Oh, we have that. And I kind of call our school the School of Non-Criminal Justice and Non-Education, but we have everything else. So, I mean, it's kind of one of the. We have psychology majors as well, but yeah, I don't feel like it's because we're open to let everybody come in, so there's not really in the restrictions or anything.
So what I'm hearing is you're putting in the budget some recruiting trips to Hawaii.
Well, that's funny you say that because
Can I sign up
we
for
keep
that
on
job?
right exactly.
I got my resume
we're getting
ready,
enough
so.
of them, and it's funny. The guy who helps me, he's like, "You can stay at my place." I'm like, "All right, I'll talk to the athletic director about that." Just got to put in the budget.
Can you share with us a little bit about your recruiting style and how you go about finding your recruits?
So, I mean, it's many different ways, right? So, like the player from Hawaii, we see a lot of video, and now I have a trusted person from down there that helps me. And
When you say a trusted person, what's their
Coach Gordon, he's
okay.
he's a travel ball coach down there, and he's also a high school coach down there. And he and I guess we've developed our relationship through Zoom, which obviously it was through the times pre-COVID a little bit, but right at COVID, and he and I had developed that relationship. And once you kind of have somebody that you trust, what type of person you want to bring into your program, which is ultimately the first thing that we really look at. We're believers of, basic things, but work ethic, being a great team player, and having a great attitude coming in. Like, we want those three basic things. And so he knows that's what we want, and that's what he helps in bringing that in. So, and then we kind of look for that. So, if I'm going to a field, I will watch the bench more than sometimes the actual field, because I want to see how they're acting. How are they acting after a strikeout? How are they acting after they, come off the field and maybe had an error that inning? I want to see that presence and that body language. That's really important to us. Think also after the game, seeing if the parent, guardian, whoever oversees them, is carrying their bag, is carrying the, asking for the red Gatorade from the parent or guardian, and they don't give it to them, and seeing how their attitude towards them is. I think that's really important to see that interaction.
So do you come with your gear on or without?
There's time. It's both. I'll sometimes come with gear, and sometimes I won't. Today I just have like a vest and this on, and I could come like this, and it doesn't really show up too much. Or I might just go full gear.
Now, do you prefer to go scout at the travel games or more like high school games? Or do it benefits to both? I
think that's a great question because me personally, I want them to be playing for a high school team. So I want to see them, how they have their spirit, how they have their loyalty towards their high school. I think that's a very important thing. But main recruiting where I watch is probably travel, just because of time frame. Because it's hard to recruit during the season. I'm exhausted during my season. And then I'm going out and I have a family, so I want to, my son plays baseball. I want to be with him. So it's important when we go out that you really get the relationship, kind of go back, like, what's your style? Trying to develop relationships with travel ball coaches and so they understand what we're looking for. And then we've had to sometimes not look for people in that program because they've given us people that were like, haven't been good for our program. So,
talent-wise or attitude-wise?
Attitude, more. Yeah. So then I feel like, okay, that person's not really telling me the whole truth of things. And so
have you seen the attitude of players change over the years, or are the kids are just kids?
The kids are kids. I think they're always kids, but I think you've seen more so over the years. You've seen a shift of a little bit more about myself than about the team. But I think travel ball does that, unfortunately. I mean, we play 80 games sometimes in the summertime. So it's just like, we play games, okay, here we go. So they lost a little bit of that competitive edge. And then they're so worried about getting recruited that they don't care if the team wins or loses, like that you see that. So we really try to look for the kid who is competitive and that wants to stay in that. And their first words are like talking about the team and not about themselves. That's really an important task too. And I can go on to parents if you would like. So we could talk about that in a little bit.
So on recruiting, before we get into parents,
yes, you're good.
On the recruiting side, give us a good recruiting story. Something that maybe you took a flyer on somebody, or you had second thoughts, and then and then it worked out, or
I'll give you a little bit of both. Okay. One of my favorite ones is when I started at Eastern Michigan. So I came over from Albion and went to Eastern, and we had to get some players. Like I was like, oh my gosh, I came in September, and I'm like, we need some players now. Like I called my trusty travel play people, and all right, well, we're not playing fall ball, but you can go see this player play basketball. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll go see her play basketball. All right, so I got some film on her first and watched her play softball. I was like, oh, she's a good athlete. She's pretty good. And went and watched her play basketball. And we all know Dennis Rodman, like fly in the stands, fly everywhere, and go all around. That was her. Like she would jump in the stands. She would dive on the floor. So I saw video of her, but I never watched her play softball. I recruited her off the basketball court. She ended up being a 2-time MVP for the MAC conference and an All-American shortstop. So I was like, wow, that was one of my best ever recruiting things I've ever done. So yeah, that's like, you just take chances and you just want athletes. And when you can get some athletes, you can make them something. And plus it helped that I knew some people that knew her playing softball too. So, but just phenomenal. Like that was great. I've seen some where I've walked up after the field and, I see the person talking to the coach, but they don't know I'm there, and then just roll our eyes and go. And I was like, that player's not going to be on our team anytime soon. We've had many players come into our prospect camp. We hold prospect camps in August and January, and they'll come to our prospect camp. And I mean, we do a pretty fast-paced practice. And when they stay up with our players and they go, we're like, shoot, they're staying up with our players. We got that. Okay. All right. Now can they hit? And then we put them into hitting. Oh, okay. And then we'll recruit them right there. And we talk them afterwards. All right, let's go. And I think that's where it's really key. If you know what major you want to go into and you want to go after that university, go to their camps. I mean, I think that's ultimately how you can get recruited big time. So
clearly, I'm not recruitable. I'm a little bit older, but I get emails to camps. We saw you play.
Come
to all kinds of different camps.
Oh,
and so one of the things
funny.
we talk about all the time is some of the players think that just because they're invited to a camp that they're recruited and they're going to get an offer when they show up.
Yeah.
So it's good to hear that you do recruit players from there.
Right.
And so you're looking basically at those camps, how they are integrating with your players, and kind of it's a way to basically see where they stack up in relation to your players and kind of have their projectability.
Right.
Projectability, is that correct?
Yeah. So what I'll do, and so they're interacting with our players, and I'll actually go around and be like, hey, what do you think of this player? And they'll tell me a little bit, and I'm like, well, what do you think of their attitude? Like, what do you think of that? And they'll tell, so that's when we're talking to our players, that's what we're talking about is like, okay, we're going to start recruiting this player. And here we go. Let's see every aspect of their personality, how they fit in, and what do you think? And
So ultimately,
awesome.
I mean, you're the head coach, and you make the final decisions. But
right.
From a staff perspective, how much input do you take from your assistant coaches to make those decisions?
Yes.
And Do you have they have certain areas or disciplines that they're focused in on to make those decisions for you or with you?
Yes. So I have an awesome staff. Just recently, my assistant left, Jim Ritz, had been with me for 6 years. But he was a mainstay with me as far as recruiting, always with me. And he would go out to tournaments. I would go out to tournaments. And I'd be like, all right, go watch this kid. And you need to recruit this kid. Okay. All right, we're going after her.
So in that case, you're kind of sending him out as the first reconnaissance effort, and then you come in and okay.
And here we go. And then Dan DePaulis, Dave Langlois, Dan and Dave are both part of the Finesse program, and so they are going to tournaments all over the country and helping out with finding. We try to find a high caliber player, right? You're going to college. We want you to. We want to be one of the top teams in the NAI, and so they go out, they try to find kids, and so they've helped recruit kids from Indiana and Ohio for us recently.
So there's a lot of data there, there's a lot of players, and I'm sure you're getting videos and emails and
for sure,
all kinds of stuff. So from a player perspective, would they be better off going to one of your assistant coaches first, going directly to you? How do you like the engagement, or what do you think is the best for them as a player if they're interested in your program?
Well, so I'm the only full-time coach, so all the emails come right to me. So I'm kind of the starter of it, and then I filter it out, the information. Or if they find somebody, they'll be like, hey, coach, email this person and see what you think, as far as the response from them. We, as far as pitching, so we have a pitching coach. We'll just send her videos. We don't send her on the road. So she just likes not to be on the road. Where Dan and Dave love being on the road. I don't mind being on the road. And then this year we have Sarah Cupp, who is she's a nurse anesthetist. That long word. She basically CRNA, so she doesn't go on the road either. So I get everything. We kind of filter it out. We talk about it. I think Dan, Dave, and I talk the most about the recruiting process, and we just kind of, who do we want? What are we looking at? Who's our top 5? Who's our top 10? And go from there.
This episode of Two Average Daves is brought to you by our sponsor, FullCountGloveRelacing.com. Get your glove back in the game. Don't take your glove to a nice kid at a sporting goods store who doesn't know a thing about glove relacing. Have a baseball guy fix your baseball glove. Reach out to Brian Spence, and it's for as little as $20, he will get your glove back in the game. It's full-count-glove-relacing.com. So what from right now, last couple of years versus like 15 years ago when you were doing recruiting, obviously you've got technology and it makes it easier to, like you said, not go on the road and you can get videos of players.
Right.
But in addition to the technology piece of it, what is it? A mentality? Is it what's changed 15 years ago to today, or has nothing changed?
No, I think things have changed. Recruiting at Eastern is definitely different than recruiting at Lawrence Tech. I think at Eastern, we were like Division I. You had to win a lot of games in order to keep your job. I mean, it's more of the winning mentality. Like, I have to do this in order for us to win the MAC championship, or do this and make sure that we get that player. I think they can bring in, and they're going to bring in more wins. Lawrence Tech, you look at, yes, you want to be a top, ranked team. But at the same time, you're giving a kid education, and you're giving them the experience that they want to go out and be in the world. And so you're kind of, the mindset is a little different, is we're going to prepare you for the real world, and we're preparing you for your job. And so the mindset is different on how you're going about your recruiting and how you're preparing them, like, next step. So just a little different in that realm.
So parents, they're all right.
Love them.
Right?
I'm a parent now, so
they're all correct, right?
I gotta be right.
So listen, let's just cut to the chase here, Coach. I got a 10-year-old daughter.
Yeah, we
so
recruiting
when,
her right
when
now.
are we getting? When am I getting the full ride scholarship?
Yeah, there you go.
So
What's that old joke? I always wish I coached a team of orphans or something like that.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
So give us in all seriousness, give us a couple comical stories or ones that you're comfortable sharing with.
Oh my gosh.
And then talk about what the parents' role should be and what you're expecting.
Right.
I mean, obviously you're a parent,
Right.
They're always protective of their children.
Correct.
Right? But
for sure.
there is, these are adults.
Yes.
They're not 8 years old anymore.
Correct.
So.
Exactly. So I do a lot of blue chip softball camps, and we always have a question and answer session after our little camp, and it's funny the questions you get, and you can see the parents back there, like they want to, and we're like looking at only the players, right? And then you got the parent that asks, and you're like, okay, go ahead. So, coach, and you're like, oh, just tell your daughter to ask that question. Like, why didn't you just do that? So, the hovering parents, the parents that like just really stay right around the dugout, like that will talk in between innings, berate the umpire. Yeah, those are parents, obviously. I'm looking and visually going, okay, whose daughter are you attached to? And I literally just did that like 3 weeks ago when I went to an indoor game. And I was like, okay, who are you attached to? Because I don't want to recruit your daughter anymore because of you, And it's so hard for parents to see that sometimes, I just went to a practice the other day, and there's an open area, there's a window, and then there's the practice area. Parents are bringing their chairs in onto the field. And I said, hey, coach, they're not coming in here. Like, they need to be out there. They have windows. They're going to see through the windows. They're going to be fine out there. They'll be just fine. And they all got to learn. You're not going to do this in college. So, and it was funny, some of the looks he got. And I was like, you got to start that now because that's not going to happen. So, but I think the expectation of the parents, I spoke after a practice I did, and I basically told the parents, I said, I did this at my recruiting, our signing, and I said, now you're the parent. You get to be a parent. And, I know you coached your daughter, and that's awesome. But at this point, it's like, be a parent. Enjoy the process. And also know that your daughter's going to college. And your daughter is now not going to be happy sometimes. And she's going to come home not being happy with things. And you got to understand that there's her story and then there's our story, And we're just we have a standard. We have how we want to do things at LTU. But understand that it is so important for you to listen to your daughter, but also know that you got to encourage her to like keep working hard. And we really encourage them to like kind of be that coach at home to encourage them to like, it's going to be tough. It's not easy, especially freshman year.
One of the things we tell the players is when they go and there's a tough situation, we tell the parents, don't immediately take your player's side. Hear them out, and then ask them, have you done everything you can do? Right. And very rarely is that the answer is, yes, I've done everything I can do. Right. What other advice do you have for parents in that regard?
Well, that's good advice. I think that's a phenomenal advice. So like for our team, we like to allow our players a lot of freedom of leadership, So we have a really good, we call them the foxhole, and they're our leaders on our team. And they do a phenomenal job of keeping the team positive and trying to keep everybody having a high standard and stuff. And I think it's really important for the parents to understand that even though it's like a player-led team, it's like the coach and the players want the best for everybody on the team. And that's kind of like not to sidetrack, but I'm going to. There's a book called Twin Thieves. It literally like stacks everything you ever want to know in coaching all in one book. And so we've been reading that, but I think it's just important for parents to understand that it's not going to be easy. It's you sign up for it, and it's not for everybody either. College softball is not for everybody. Collegiate athletics isn't for everybody. And maybe the hard decision of I should just be in a student now and not a student athlete. And sometimes it's really hard for people to do and go with. But for us, I mean, I'm like, hey, it's an academic school. Like, you got to do well. In order to stay in this, you got to do well. And you're here to like go on to your job. You're not going to play professional softball after this. You're not going to go and get big bucks because of softball. You're getting big bucks because of architecture, mechanical, biomedical. That's what you're going into. So that's got to be your main focus. And I think just the parents need to support that. So we actually, to kind of go with the parent thing, we have a parent who I filter everything through her at college, and she like sends out the letter that I say, here's how you are at games. Say hello. It's a quick hello. We do a doubleheader. It's a quick hello. It's not a conversation. We're here. It's a business trip. We're here to play softball. And so we have this whole thing that we send to the parents. And then I have a parent who takes all the questions. And then she's the only one that can ask me like the questions. Not that I don't like my parents.
So you have a parent advocate.
You got it. But that's exactly it. And she's the one.
Parent filter. Yeah.
But it is. It's a parent. So like so I don't get 20 questions. I get her asking the questions, and I'm like, all right, so here, this is how you do it, and this is what we do.
So she come up to you every once in a while and go, and roll her eyes and go, I'm sorry, I got to ask you this.
She does, but she's awesome. Like, I mean, she's very blunt, and that's what I want. I want you to be blunt with me, and like, okay, this is what's going on.
Every year you select a new parent?
No, so we've been really, we've had, how many years? 7 years I've been here. We've had 3 parent advocates. So, she's actually in her year 3. She got selected by me. Her daughter was a freshman. I was like, you're going to be the parent, just so you know. So just because she's blunt, she's like straightforward, and she'll tell me what's up, and I'll be like, okay. And, and we make sure to.
So how eye-opening is that for you sometimes? Because, I mean, obviously you're on the field, you're coaching, you're looking at certain things, and sometimes you may not catch all the dynamics that are going on. So how valuable is that? And how many any good stories about how, like, well, I didn't realize this was going on, or, they brought this to my attention?
To be honest with you, there isn't a lot that she's brought to me if she's taking care of things. I mean, I'm going to be honest, you guys. Like, we have really good parents. Like, I've been really lucky over the years to have some really good parents. I mean, that's kind of, we try to filter it through the recruiting process. You don't get everybody, but like, we've had some great parents that have been very supportive. Have we had some situations? Yes, we have. And, we've told the players, like, you got to take care of your parents. And that's kind of where the angle we do it from is the players, you got to talk to your parents. They shouldn't be doing that type of thing.
So what do you do when you have that freshman who's coming in and college is kind of a shock to them, and they're just having a hard time adjusting,
right? And
they're going home to mom and dad, and I don't know if I can do this,
Right.
So how do you help them along?
So thank you, thanks for asking that, because we take a lot of pride with our freshmen, because I wasn't the best student. Obviously, I was an athlete, then a student. So I've taken a lot of pride as a coach, their freshman year, when they come in, that they are going to meet with me every other week about academics, how things are going, what's going on in your life. Is there anything I can help you with? Is there anything the Foxhole can help you with? Like, how can we make this best for you? And there's some that it's hard, right? It's really hard sometimes. And then there's others you're like, oh, you don't need any help? Are you all right? Really? You're doing great? But we talk every other week, and we just make sure we do check-ins to make sure they're doing well. And our team does a lot of bonding stuff in their fall season, just to make sure everybody stays together, and we try to keep them on campus.
Can you give us some examples of your bonding?
Yeah.
Time?
So we've done anywhere from doing some rope climbing. Done some of that. We will do, as far as they will do meals, a lot of meals. The freshmen love to like get the meals, the home cooked meals. So the upperclassmen take care of the home cooked meals.
So
and then
upperclassmen cook the meals?
Yeah. They'll have different meals. She's from Hawaii, Glory. She loves making meals and for people. She's definitely has the aloha, the welcoming. But they're really, they'll go to football games together. They'll do ice cream. They love to do ice cream runs. Lot of food related things. They definitely do that. And then, on the field, we'll do like silly things. But we'll definitely make sure that, I think the most thing is the relationship building. So after we are done in the fall, I actually do classroom sessions with them. And so whatever they have, August, September. So we're done at the end of October. And then they do a lot of stuff. November and December is on their own. So they have hitting, pitching on their own. And but I will do every Friday, we'll do classroom sessions. So like this year we had Jamie Betchler. He came out. I don't know if you see him on Twitter, but he's out of Ohio and he was in Michigan. So he stopped by. One of our professors actually does a lot with above the line, below the line. She came and she spoke. She talks a lot about communication. So we did a lot of communication things this fall. We had, and then I do my own stuff with the players. I'll do just different games. Our sports psychologist, he came in and did a day as well with them, did some different games with them. They love to get to know each other. So, during those sessions, we try to really build the relationships and how important that is. Because in the end, you go back to parents, you want to build relationships. You want to build relationships with their daughter. With the parents, you want to make sure that you're building relationships. And so the more you get to know the players, the more you can, you're kind of understanding what are you going through. And I think that's what helps in the individual meetings. And then when you do those classroom sessions and you're just constantly building relationships. We did a holiday party at my house. They always love their Italian food and they make homemade gifts. That's probably one of the coolest things that we started a couple of years ago. We used to do white elephant gifts and then now, they're nicer and they want to do homemade gifts. So we do a lot of homemade gifts and gotten some really cool things. They're all hanging up in my office, so pretty fun.
What are some of the common misconceptions that parents or players come into the recruiting process with that you either have to address or straighten out, or just stuff that they're misinformed on?
I think one of the most important things is as a coach for us, we never promise playing time. And I think one of the misconception is well, I'm on the team, I'm going to start, right? Well, no, everybody has to go through it. Now we don't care if you're a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. You could be a starter in any one of those classes, but it's not just because you're on the team and you were a 4-year varsity starter that you're going to all of a sudden be a starter in college. You got to work for it, and it's not easy. You got to work hard. So we have testing. We have every day. We do scrimmages. And so I think the misconception is I'm going to start because I've always started. Well, look at this lineup right here. They've all started, in their 4 years, So you're trying to grind into that lineup and, it's going to be hard. And I think the hard thing too is the mental challenge of the transition from high school to college. It's faster. But a lot of people, it takes on the mental challenge of them. They are mentally defeated sometimes. And so then you have to figure out, okay, we got to build you back up and got to figure that out.
Get her back in line.
Yeah, exactly. So
throw a life raft and get her back on.
Not always easy for them, right? So yes. So I think that's probably one of the misconceptions I would say. And honestly, the other misconception I would go with is, you're an athlete, but you're a student first. I think some people I wasn't really taught that. I was an athlete, right? But I think, yes, you're going to be on the field, but if you need time, you're going to end up needing time in the classroom, go do it. And I think, but that's individual colleges, right? So that's where I think in the recruiting process, you got to ask those questions, not to revert, but I just thought of a couple of things, like questions to ask, like roster size. That's huge.
I got a question for that too.
Okay, if you want to go on it, go ahead.
I'm seeing through our fall ball and talking to some of the coaches, coaches seem to be over recruiting a lot now, just to increase enrollment at the school, and then these kids are, I don't want to say stuck there, but kind of are, because they don't make cuts until later in the year, until November or even up to January, and they've already burned a year. Are you seeing that more and more?
So I'm going to talk specifically about LTU, and then I'll talk general, right? Like we pride ourselves in making sure we say, here's our roster size, and we go 20, probably 22 to 25. Like that's our roster size, and that's pretty average now, like with softball, and that's because of injury. I have 6 pitchers now. In high school they have 2 or 1, and it's funny because, not to regress a little bit, but I have a freshman who she was literally the only pitcher in her high school in her travel ball. And now she's with 4 other pitchers and she's like, whoa. And then but now that was how she was at the beginning. Now she's like, I'm so glad there's 5 of us. There's 4 of us, I'm like, I know, it's so much better. But the roster size. So like, we are very honest, like, here's our roster. This is what we have. Y'all travel. And this is what we do. Right. And there's people who have travel squads and not travel squads, right? Like there's 5 people that might not travel, to save the budget. But then in the end, what we're seeing a lot with softball, I mean, people that are having 28, 30, 35 on softball rosters. And like, I think 25 is huge, right? But to get that many, and some of them have JV teams, and they've been told that and everything else. But it's a lot, and they're numbers, smaller colleges, recruit a little bit more. I'm thankful that LTU, hasn't said you have to do this. Like we're within a range and feel good with that. So, but definitely the roster sizes are getting bigger. And
so you're seeing that
across the country. I think it's across the country. So, which is funny. Like if you think in Michigan, our travel ball size teams are like 12 and 13, but if you go out west, their travel ball sizes are 20, 21. So they're always competing for spots. They're always, all that. And so they're used to that, where our Michigan, they're like, it's only 12, 13, so it's a little different. But it's across this is across the United States. And to go with baseball, holy smokes, they're like 45, 50 on their rosters. So I don't know how some of them do it. And I think you just, that creates a tough situation I really hope a lot of those coaches are being honest, like that's all it is. Like, hopefully the coaches are being honest with them.
Too many parents, I mean, like from our age, are if you're good, they'll find you mentality.
No,
and
I don't believe that.
And that's, I think, gone by the wayside a long time ago.
Yes.
They think, I mean, it's no joke. They think that your kid's going to hit a double, and then some coach is going to come running out of the bushes and go, here, sign here. Here's your full ride scholarship.
I think I think when there was less teams, right? There was less travel teams. I think it was a little easier, but now there's a lot of teams. And I think you have to do your due diligence. I think you have to, I'm not a huge believer of the big recruiting, services but because I think it needs to be more personalized, and it comes from the player. And, just as much I want to show you that, I'm recruiting you, but you got to show me that you want to be here too, because I think that's just as important. Because then I know the relationship will be
So we
better.
tell a lot of the players, you just have to make the first phone call.
Yes.
The first email.
Yes.
And then once you do that, and you may not get a response right away.
Right.
That's okay.
Right.
But once you do that and get through that barrier, and the other thing we tell them is have a 30-second elevator pitch.
Yes.
And then ask the coach about their program.
Right.
And obviously you're very, very proud of what you've built. So I'm sure that a lot of your recruiting calls, you carry a lot of the conversation and talk about the school.
I'm trying to be better at that. It's
not a negative thing.
I'm teasing you.
But what happens is that they
Right.
make that first phone call
Right.
and they have that first interaction with the coach, and then it's almost like smooth sailing after that.
Right.
And we tell them that, they're people. Right?
Oh, that's so funny. I was just about to say another misconception is that they don't think we're human or something. Right? Like, we're human. We'll talk to you and we make mistakes, we'll admit things. Like,
this isn't television.
No,
we
exactly.
can interact.
We'll
right?
interact,
So,
and
right.
I think that's a misconception too, is that coaches won't talk. There are rules like at tournaments, but like when we can talk to you, we will, and we'll interact with you, and joke with you, and tell you straight up. I think that's the other thing is you find at the college level. Not as much, like I said, it's not as much about winning at the NAI as it is Division I, but like this is our livelihood. So we don't want to screw it up. We don't want to like do something poorly either. And so we're here to look out what's best for the team. And, especially Division I, that's a lot of pressure there. I listen to people that they will cancel their vacations because they have to go recruiting. And I'm like, no, I'm going on my vacation. And there's never a balance. Like, people talk about work-life balance and try to figure that. No, there's no balance. Like my dad just said today, so you off? Like you got a couple weeks off? I'm like, Dad, I'm never really off. I said I brought my computer home and everything. So he's like, oh, okay. I'm trying to make sure my son, he's baseball and soccer, and I'm so thankful that both of those coaches are open to letting him be a multi-sport athlete.
You just mentioned two of the most expensive sports nowadays to play.
Yes.
Don't get us too started on youth soccer.
Yeah.
We went through that with our kids.
Right.
And in baseball, the price of travel teams has become outrageous.
Yes.
It's going to price itself out.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, to be honest with you. And it's funny, like the competition to have this group and that, and then facility wise, I'll do that facility. So it's just funny back in like when we grew up, how different it was.
It is.
So, and I just feel bad for these kids because
and the mentality nowadays. What was that? The coach we talked about collectors versus.
Oh, Coach Pickens was talking about coaching versus collecting.
Yes.
Yep.
Where the travel ball, baseball, softball, you can whatever.
Yeah.
Instead of coaching up the kids, you got a roster of 12,
Yep.
like for baseball, and then you just cut the bottom 4 and you get 4 more. You collect 4 different
that's
players.
true.
And then you go
just
and
keep upgrading.
You collect 4
keep
more
collecting.
players instead of
that-
taking the 12 and coaching them up. And maybe
For
there's one that
4
won't
to 5
work or whatever,
years, yeah.
But building on that
Right.
and coaching them up versus just basically recruiting or collecting the players. And I thought that was really telling. And but I think that goes on.
And one of the topics we've talked about before in soccer is the way they train their coaches.
Yes.
You don't see that in softball and baseball. Any parent can start their own team,
Right.
and coach them however they want.
Yes.
And
There's no formal.
And it's such a hard
regulation.
sport, which is so crazy. It's such a hard sport, right? It's funny because my assistants, we were just talking tonight, and we were talking about that. Like, I feel like there's something out there that you could do more coaches clinics of like actual on the field coaches clinics, and like I'll go to camps or not camps. I'll go to practices and run practices. Wow, and take them through a college practice. Hey, this is what we do, and this is how we do it. And
well, look, I'm not blowing smoke, but you're kind of a unicorn there. I mean, there's I don't know what it is about we're in the baseball world, but there's something about the mentality of baseball coaches that
secrets.
Right, and it's
we
not.
We just talked about this in the softball world. They don't share.
Share
We're like,
your knowledge,
right? Baseball
because I guarantee you,
baseball
if you
totally
get
shares
10
it.
coaches,
Yes.
like even the 10 coaches in however many coaches in your
Yes.
league, I guarantee you, if you get all those, you're better at one skill, they're better at another skill, and so if you take that at on the youth level, there's a lot of knowledge to be shared, but somehow they think by hoarding it that it's somehow benefiting them or their kid or
so
whatever.
it's pretty cool. So Murph down at Alabama, he's gotten to the point. He's like, I'm just sharing everything. So like he will share you everything about softball, and they're starting because he also goes to the ABCA. So he'll, so he understands, but I think there needs to be more sharing of softball. Like I would love, my friends, we'll talk about softball, we'll interact, we'll do it like in our small groups and stuff like that. But I feel like on the bigger stage, there needs to be more sharing of that. The knowledge, like, let's just break it down. Let's, talk a little more about it. So getting better. The NFCA does so that's our Fast Pitch Coaches Association. It's like the ABCA. And they have done a much better job of trying to get coaches to open up and like, let's do more sharing. So they'll do like little NFCC clinics that, before, and they debrief and they deep dive and do everything. So we're getting better. We're trying, softball's trying to get there. Like we're trying to open up more, but we joke about that too. So
you do some roundtable discussions.
Yes. I would love more roundtable discussions. Yes. That'd be awesome. So we could do that. No, I appreciate, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
No, thanks for coming on. And this is what we're trying to, what you did here, just getting, the inside baseball, inside softball, just to help, clear up some of these things for parents and players that, we're trying to help educate them. And so it's not such a jungle out there. And
Correct.
There's a lot of predators out there.
There,
hey,
a lot of recruiting.
We're going to do this and we're going to do that. And,
services that just don't do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. They just get their money. Hey, sign up, get my money. And I'm like, oh, don't do that. Don't do that. You can make your own resume. You can make your own video. It doesn't even have to be that elaborate. Right. Just give me a 2-minute video. I'm just looking at the video to see if you're athletic. Yep. I'm not, unless you're in Hawaii, but like I'm looking to see if you're athletic, and then I'm going to go start recruiting you on the field. And then I'll start doing all the research, and figuring that out and everything.
There's a lot
else.
of camps that are like that too, that are just predators for money.
Yeah.
They come in, we're going to have all these coaches here, they make all these promises.
Mm-hmm. And then there's nobody there.
There's nobody there. Or
that's not good.
The coaches are just there because they're paid.
Their fourth volunteer coach who may or may not be
got it.
coming right out of the bar. So
got him. Yeah. So I will say that's one thing. If you go to camps, you'll see a lot of head coaches in Michigan that do assist, like their first assistant and the head coach will go do a lot of the Michigan camps. Blue chip. There's some people that come in, they'll get head coaches. So that's pretty cool with softball. So yeah. But no, thank you guys. I really appreciate it. And glad I could share some stuff with you. And, parents aren't bad. We love parents. I'm a parent myself. So, we're all parent. We're all one. So
it's parent on parent crime.
That's right. Yeah.
This episode of Two Average Daves is brought to you by our sponsor, Full Count Glove Relacing. Get your baseball glove back in the game. Don't take your glove to a shoe repair business or expect a nice kid at the sporting goods store to know how to relace it. Have a baseball guy fix your baseball glove. Reach out to Brian Spence at 248-217-3979. And for as little as $20, he'll get your glove back in the game. Visit the Full Count website at full-count-glove-relacing.com.